That music entertainer Ray J has been arrested by LAPD.
Willie Ray Norwood Jr. is probably one of the most gifted individuals I've ever met in my life. I'm not going to take it from him. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to play in his face. But without Ray J, there's no Brady. Or Fantasia, the way y'all are out here supporting Sabrina Carpenter. You know, support Bobby Brown. We downplay the Chitlin Circuit because we want to cross over so bad. We downplay the black dollar as if it is not the taste-making engine that it is. They tried to Wendy-fy Bethany Frankel. Yo, what up? It is yours truly, the Mohawk and Real Talk and Living Fully Business Bully out here doing what I do. Snapping necks, cashing checks. Woo! You are checking out Brother King Cam. Listen, get your mind right. Get your money right and get your thoughts together. So you got some sense. Brother King Cam is not to be played with. Intellectual brothers saying intellectual things. And I dig.
What's good, family, and welcome to Shifting the Culture podcast, where we speak truth to power, elevate the people, and challenge the narrative. I'm your host, Brother King Cam. And today, family, on Shifting the Culture, we're sitting down with a man who has built a reputation on telling the truth. Not the comfortable truth, but the truth that shakes the room. Dave Anderson is a best-selling author, a powerhouse business coach, and an unapologetic truth teller who's been sharpening minds and shifting mindsets for years. Before becoming one of the most sought-after voices in business development, Dave spent 25 years in radio, rising through the ranks as an executive and mastering the art of communication, culture, and influence. That experience helped mold the no-nonsense, cut-through the BS approach he's known for today. He's a father, husband, and a builder of people, someone who doesn't just teach business, but teaches ownership, responsibility, and legacy. His latest book, The Real Black Agenda, pulls the veil back on the lies fed to Black America by politicians, media, the school system, and even some of our own so-called leaders. Dave exposes it all and challenges us to reclaim our own narrative and power. So let's tap in, lock in, and get ready for some real conversation with the one and only Dave Anderson.
Thank you, man. That's a really nice intro. I'm just take you on the road with me.
I love to go, brother. I'm all about learning.
Yes, sir.
I'm all about learning. So thank you for joining us today. And I want to get right into it.
Sure.
You know, you started radio at the age of 9.
9 years old.
And retired at 34.
That is correct.
Brother, how does one start at 9 years old with a radio show and do what you do?
So I had an issue with the education system very early on in my childhood because a lot of times when you're in the hood, and you know this, the majority of our teachers are, and again, this is not to disparage an entire race of people, but the majority of our teachers are white women. And some of them have certain preconceived notions on how a young Black boy is supposed to operate. And if you don't fit into a particular box, they won't do anything in order to encourage or help you. Right. Being the son of a teacher, my mother thought all teachers were all teachers and all teachers absolutely love children because that was her experience. No. So I got frustrated because I was doing the assignments and then I was bored. It's like me spending time with my 10-year-old and she's coloring and I'm like, hey, color within the lines like this and this is how you shade and so on so forth. And she's like, hold on, daddy, I got to do this. So I was bored. Right. They make me do answer keys. And I'm like, why won't you let me take the test so I can skip a couple grades, get up out of here.
Get up out of here, right.
And it wasn't happening. So in protest, I just stopped doing my homework. I know this, so why am I doing this? This is a waste of my time. That's how I thought at 9. My mother on report card day was shocked to see that I had some, bad grades because I'm allegedly of above average intelligence. And what wound up happening was after the swelling in my behind went down, my mother took everything out of the room. My brother, who's 7 years older than me, he's 16, so he had a job, so he had money. He went and snuck in a phone and a radio in my room. but because I read a lot, I knew that in those days in the 80s, the TV signals, the sound on the TV was run through radio signals. So if you turned your dial all the way to the left, I'm really aging myself right now. But if you turn your dial all the way to the left, you could catch something. And it was Tuesday. When I say my mom locked me down, I didn't have the clock on my wall. So it was a Tuesday night. This I remember is because Who's the Boss came on Tuesdays.
Wow.
And that was one of my favorite shows. So I was like, well, at least I can listen to Who's the Boss. She won't know. I'll keep it real low. And so I turned to the dial, and somehow I wound up on this show. It was 88.5 FM at WXPN. It was a show called Kids Corner. Curly Neal from the Harlem Globetrotters was a guest on that show. And I called in on this snuck-in phone. Right. And I was so excited to talk to Curly Neal because he did this one trick. And he said, I haven't done that trick in like 6 years. How old were you then? I was like 3. He was like, you remember that? I was like, yeah. He said, I don't know what y'all are doing, but y'all need to hire this kid. So a couple days go by. I don't think anything of it. Phone rings. And my mother, I can hear her saying, hello? Yeah, this is David Anderson's mother. He what? You want him to do what? Curly Neal? Globetrot. So after the swelling in my behind went down, that's how I got Kids Corner, and I just never looked back from there. It was television, radio, up and down the dial, 34 cities, 19 states. Ricky Smiley, DJ Clue, Charlamagne, Wendy Williams, D. Lee, who started the Laugh House, which basically created the Philadelphia comedy scene that we now know. Michael Blackson, Kevin Hart, all those folks came from him.
Through there. Yep.
So, you know, I had a wonderful, very tumultuous career, and I was just thrilled to be able to talk to people and play records. And for a long time, I thought that's all there was. And then I realized that life had a lot more for me, and so here we are.
Wow. That's amazing, bro. And to be the youngest radio personality at the time?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, so man, that's amazing. So 25 years in radio.
Yes.
And you worked on some of the biggest shows.
True.
You know, that are out there, you know, helping to produce Wendy Williams.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. How was your experience, and what were you able to learn?
You know, it's funny. You see, like Dame Dash went on the Breakfast Club after I did this year, and he said to Charlamagne almost like an insult, like, Wendy Williams is your OG.
He did.
And,
He did.
You know, that means you're based in gossip. No, what it means is that you're based in being a shrewd business person. It means that you're not going to take anything. It means that you're taught that your microphone is something you don't give up easily. And if you're hungry, you'll do it anywhere. What I got from her, and again, I tell people all the time, like, there's a difference between letting somebody go because they're not good and letting somebody go because if they stay where they are, they'll just stay where they are. The same way Roberta Flack got rid of Luther Vandross, not because he wasn't a great background singer, but he wasn't supposed to be a background singer. She said to me in so many words, next time I see you, you'll be a success because these folks ain't leaving a spot and you too hungry. You understand? Because every business, whether we choose to admit it, especially dealing with our folks, is blood sport, and everybody thinks they're Highlander. There can be only one, and they'll chop your head off.
Right.
I'm not
That's
walking
so
around
true.
here with a broadsword. I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid. I just want to be on the radio. And finally, after years of doing kids radio and talk shows and Saturday morning television, I wanted to play hip hop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I wanted to talk to,
yeah.
you know, those kinds of folks. And I finally got at my dream radio station, but there wasn't any room for me.
Right.
And what she said that really stuck out to me was she made $25 a week working in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And that to me was like, wow. I didn't get it at the time, and I was really upset, but I learned a lot from watching how she moved, what she would and would not tolerate. Forget woman, just black person in a white-dominated space. There was just certain things you just did not do with Wendy Williams. Same thing with Miss Jones. You know, even Clue. Like when I did Desert Storm Radio, Clue was very about his business, very quiet, very matter of fact. You ain't really hear from Clue unless there was a problem.
Right.
So all of those experiences made me realize that even if I didn't know it consciously, subconsciously, there was something bigger, there was something more that was possible. Because there's 1,000,001 radio personalities, there's 1,000,001 radio executives. I wanted to be one of one. And that's how I operated. And that mindset for me came from people like D. Lee, Smoking Tony Richards, Wendy Williams, so.
Absolutely. So, her letting you go essentially was like a catapult into, what you was able to do with syndicating Ricky Smiley radio show.
Yeah, that came much, much later on. There's a lot of going up and down the dial with that.
Oh yeah,
but,
let's talk about it, because that journey.
Oh gosh, man. I don't remember everywhere, but I say 34 cities in 19 states because that's the stat. Okay. I couldn't tell you everywhere I've been. Right. Some places I was only there for a month. Some places I was there for a couple of years. Okay. It's just what it is. You're a product. It's a commodity when you're a radio personality. And when you want an opportunity, I wanted to move up. And my whole thing was I wasn't going to be somebody whose legacy started and ended in Fayetteville, North Carolina. No diss to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Shout out to J. Cole. But I knew that there was more. And at the time, the internet wasn't what it is now. It doesn't matter where you are now. You can be in Meridian, Mississippi and still be dominating.
And be dominating, right, exactly.
Not in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was like, I got to climb up. But when I left Power 99 at that particular point in history, and I'm going to be honest, tears in my eyes, like, what am I supposed to do? I ain't got no job. This is all I know. And my mom said, if you weren't you, who would you tell you to call? You can't call Wendy. Who you gonna call? And ironically, I did not say Ghostbusters. I said Russ Parr. So I called Russ Parr in D.C. He says, okay, kid, send me a tape. Sent him the tape. And I didn't expect to hear from him. 20 minutes later, I'm in the bathroom. 20 minutes later, he calls. He said, listen, there's some folks out in North Carolina. Can you get on a plane tonight? Yeah. I got on the plane that night. The next day I had a deal, and I didn't stop. I just went from job to job to job.
Wow. Wow. So talk about the impact that Russ Parr had, and, him being able to provide that opportunity. Because I remember being originally being from Richmond, Virginia.
Oh yeah, so
so shout out to the DMV.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to Diamond. She from Richmond, Virginia too. You know what I mean? So growing up, we heard Russ Parr on the radio. Power 92, 106.5 The Beat. So I heard Russ Parr a lot. So just to hear the correlation that and the connection that y'all had and how he was able to do that is like, wow, Russ Parr was really, is really one of the ones. So just talk about that.
The thing about a young black boy that people don't understand is that we will be what we see. And when I was a kid, I remember being in my dad's living room and I heard Bobby Jimmy and the Critters. Roaches. If you don't know the song, look it up. Bobby Jimmy is Russ Parr. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then on his show, he did this bit where he interviewed Michael Jackson. And in this bit, he's like, hey, it's Russ Parr. I'm here with the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Michael, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, Russ. Who is this? Michael Jackson. You don't? Nah. No, it's really me. Oh, I know what the problem is. Oh. What did you do? What did you do? Well, I have my hand on my crotch. When I have my hand on my crotch, I talk like this. Hand on crotch, hand off crotch, hand on crotch, hand off crotch. I was like, yo, he's interviewing himself in real time.
Yo.
And I'm a kid, and I'm like, yo. It showed me that when black people get a hold of something, because radio is called theater of the mind, when black people get a hold of something and we're gifted and we're allowed to use our imagination, we're unstoppable. So to me, at that point, there were only two people I was chasing. Russ Parr, Tom Joyner.
Wow.
And so
heavy hitters. Russ,
when he knew who I was because Tony Richards, Smoking Tony Richards, who is actually a programmer here in Atlanta now, he was the one who got me in morning radio. Tony Richards was the first one to put me in a position at 20 years old in a major market producing a morning show. He would call Russ Parr to get him to do Mickey Mouse and do all these different voices and whatnot. So, it was just an amazing situation. So he knew enough about me to know that I'm not going to embarrass or disrespect his name or his reputation by him putting it on the line for me by getting me this gig in North Carolina. So you fast forward several years. There's a guy named Rick Party who, if you've ever seen a Pacquiao fight or a lot of those UFC fights, the voice that you hear, the former voice of BET, that's Rick Party, another mentor of mine, right? So I'm trying to make sure I'm giving everybody their flowers and telling my story, because I'm really just telling you the story of a kid who got to dance on the shoulders of giants all the way to the top.
Yes, sir.
Rick Party had this event because there was Jack the Rapper, there was like Billboard conferences, but there wasn't anything for Black radio. And he created this thing called I Rock the Mic. And at that conference, one of the honorees was Russ Parr. And I got at that moment to give Russ Parr his flowers because I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for that man. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Tony. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Wendy. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Clue. Like there are a lot of people who have every right to say that in my career, they had a huge part in making me, and we don't do that enough. We're like, well, I just got here on my own steam. No, I did not.
I was going to say that.
I did not. I am literally the amalgam. I'm the serpentor of all of those people. For those people who don't understand that G.I. Joe reference, that's going to make a lot of sense when you Google who Serpentor was.
And, a lot of people like to say that they self-made. And I don't agree with that at all because no matter what industry, what lane you in, what niche you in, there were pioneers that came before you.
Yes.
And regardless to, the obstacles and things that you face in your growth and development, there was doors that was kicked down. There was, opportunity that was made that was because of those that came before you. So there's nobody that's self-made. You had others, greats that you stand on the shoulders of. And I think as you talk about that, being able to give each other flowers is very important. You talked about this in another interview that you did where you was talking about how in hip hop, we the consumers have had a huge role in really the degeneration and the degradation of it because you talked about how NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, all of these major white bands can go sell out stadiums, and bring other talent on and, make their money. Whereas it takes New Edition, Tony Braxton, and Boyz II Men to come together in order to do a show so that we can give all of them their flowers and things of that nature. So it's like, being able to give each other flowers and give the legacy holders their props is very important.
Yeah, if we actually supported our artists and our icons the way we should, then we wouldn't have no issues. But what do? Oh, such and such ain't had a hit in 20 years. I'm sorry, when the last time Aerosmith had a hit? 98?
Garth Brooks, when the last time he had a hit?
Garth Brooks still selling out stadiums.
Right, Celine Dion,
Celine Dion is so dope, though. She literally, in Vegas, had a hologram. This is years, it was like 15 years ago. She had a hologram singing. Nobody knew it was a hologram. And all of a sudden, from the back of the arena, she starts walking and singing in perfect harmony with her hologram. But they can do that because the reason people like Celine Dion is because she sounds like a black woman when she sings. She got pipes. Right?
That's a fact.
And my whole thing is support Fantasia the way y'all are out here supporting Sabrina Carpenter. Support Bobby Brown. And I get it, Bobby Brown done been through some things, but what was done to Bobby Brown was not fair. New Edition is the blueprint that gives you the Backstreet Boys, that gives you NSYNC, that gives you K-pop. And we don't want to talk about that because here's what black people will do. Generally speaking, if it doesn't apply, don't cry. Well, they got paid to produce those records for them K-pop artists. Everybody's eating. And I like Bruno Mars. I didn't say Bruno Mars wasn't talented. I didn't say Bruno Mars couldn't sing. I did say that Bruno Mars went on tour with Janelle Monáe, and all of a sudden he came off of that tour and went from I Want to Be a Billionaire So Freaking Bad to Doo-Wops and Hooligans, sounding like a hodgepodge of Morris Day and Frankie Beverly and Maze. I call balls and strikes. However, again, you have these people who are singing like us, who are J.E.E. Are you familiar with J.E.E.? Just ethnic enough. It's why Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can be Hercules and nobody bats an eye because he's just ethnic enough, and that's not taking away or diminishing his blackness, but people look at The Rock and they say he's Samoan.
Yes.
That's why they don't get mad while he's in blockbuster movies with white wives. Nobody bats an eye. But Idris Elba was rumored to be James Bond, which, by the way, is a fictional character, and white folks lost their minds. And my whole thing is there used to be a time we downplay the Chitlin Circuit because we want to cross over so bad. We downplay the black dollar as if it is not the taste-making engine that it is, all so that we can be more popular with folks who just consume us but don't realize how integral our contributions are. Damn that.
So I think you could probably add some validity to this because I just thought about this as you were talking.
Sure.
With the Temptations, and I saw this in the movie, so that's why I'm asking you for your validity on this. But the Temptations was like they was running the Chitlin circuit, and they were the top black group, and they were doing their thing.
It's a fact.
And then they're introduced to the Copa, right? And let's do the Copa so that we can cross over, right? And, there was a big thing on, well, why do we need to cross over? A lot of our fans are black. Why do we need to do the Copa, right? And their manager was insistent on you doing this. And at the time, they were signed, obviously, to Motown.
Correct.
And doing the Copa would cross them over into another audience, which they didn't believe was necessary. But their manager was pushing them to this. Is that kind of the same? Is exactly what you're talking about as far as
to a certain extent? So let's break it down because a lot of times the movie leaves out certain things that are extremely important to that part of the story.
Okay.
The first thing is their manager, a white man, a palm-colored man of a certain
ethnic
background, right?
They always there.
Of course. They're always there. And that doesn't mean that they're all bad. I can tell you as a former youth president of an organization called NCCJ, I know that they're not all bad, but facts are facts. When you are a manager, you eat what you kill. You get a commission from what you kill. So how do I make more money if all I'm doing is looking for black folks? Well, here's what we do. We get you set up in the Copa so that everybody can see you. And the next thing we do, we create what's called the Mellow Mood album. The Mellow Mood album was an album of standards, right? Standards being records that people are familiar with, Burt Bacharach and those types of things. That's not a bad idea. Boyz II Men did it, but Boyz II Men did it on a downswing as opposed to the upswing, right? Having said all of that, sometimes a good idea, like the movie says, should just remain an idea. What happened was they said, oh, okay, cool. And that same manager, allegedly, I wasn't there, I wasn't quite born yet, but allegedly said, okay, well, we can make a different move. We can go over to Atlantic Records. And then when they got to Atlantic Records, they realized that, hey, guess what? You're still black. You're still black. You're still black. And they gave them the black treatment. And now all the artists get the black treatment, regardless of how big the label is. And that in and of itself is important. Now, I'll give you a real example in real time. And I got the tape. Sitting down with Bobby Valentino, this is circa 2010. I am the first director of social media at Clear Channel, which would eventually become iHeart. And I'm sitting there and I said, I notice on every album you do either a remake or something along those lines. And he had this video that was very similar to Lionel Richie's Hello video. I said, bro, you will be the biggest R&B star in the world if you did an album of black standards. And he was like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. He didn't do it. Had Bobby Valentino done it, Bobby Valentino would be the biggest R&B star in the world right now.
Wow.
Vocally, like he's dope. I'm not saying he's the dopest. I think the dopest of his class would probably be Mario. Mario's next level.
He's fire.
Every time I interview Mario, I'm like, you got to do it. And he would sit up there and he would sing Knocks Me Off My Feet. And I love his rendition better than Donnell Jones's.
Oh, yeah?
Like, Mario is untouchable. But we got to realize when people are familiar with songs, they tend to check out every other thing that you do. That's why when you look at people who won contests like The Voice or American Idol, they sang standards. People who lose sing songs that are only familiar to one particular audience.
Right.
And so, there's some validity in that, but with an asterisk. You got to be careful as to how you wield that weapon.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Well, what up, Mario? Now, Mario and, really, Ray J been in the news lately right now with this whole challenge that Ray J, next to Chris Brown and Usher, can out-sing anybody. And he called himself challenging Mario to a sing-off. And Mario like, okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But what's your thoughts on Ray J right now?
Willie Ray Norwood Jr. is probably one of the most gifted individuals I've ever met in my life. I'm not going to take it from him. I'm not going to play in his face. I don't give a damn who he marries. I don't give a damn about reality shows. He is an innovator. He is a pioneer, and people like to sleep on him. But without Ray J, there's no Brandy. Like, be clear about that. Remember, people forget the Sinbad show. People forget Ray J was there. He was very developed. Brandy wound up popping first. Keep in mind, Miss Sonia had Immature and all them folks. Like, we got to stop. I don't rewrite history. I recite history. And we tend to only focus on the history that we like or the history that they want us to focus on. Ray J was arguably the first child star in Black America to be that level of double threat of our generation. And so when you look at how many times he's bet on himself, that last album that he had been working on from like 2002 until it came out in 2005, where he sang his heart out. When you look at him singing In That Rain, and he's, that one wish, say whatever you want. If you listen to that entire song, the long version, not the radio edit, the long version, he's a monster. Not to mention, I want everybody to go pick up Brandy's album. I'm pretty sure it's Never Say Never. It might be that album. It might be Angel in Disguise, but they remade PM Dawn's Die Without You. And sometimes siblings, when they had the same mother and same father, their voices blend so well. That's why the Jacksons got off. That's why the Jets got off. Brandy and Ray J brought me to tears with their rendition of PM Dawn's Die Without You. If you hear it, you'll be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to mess with PM Dawn's anymore.
Wow.
And I am a PM Dawn stan. Yeah. That is a bold statement to make. I know. Put your Twitter fingers down. Hear the song and listen to the piano, listen to the harp, listen to how beautifully their voices blend.
Right.
Having said all of that, because I wanted to give Ray J his flowers before I level this hammer, there is no universe, now or ever, short of Mario drinking a broken glass smoothie, where Ray J is going to come close to eviscerating that man.
Yes, sir.
My professional opinion, knowing them both, having heard them both, it's not even a contest. Like, that's why Mario would probably not even address it beyond, yeah, okay. Because that's not what he wants. And then again, we all saw that versus. We saw that.
We did. And that was a highly anticipated versus.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, Mario came, and I loved the professionalism with Mario. You know, he was probably the one that was the most polished out of everybody.
He's a performer.
Yes, he came with the performance, the dance, the voice, the package. Yeah. He came to do the business. He understood the assignment that night. Everybody else was kind of like, you know, we just here, we just showing up. They kind of did what rappers do. They just kind of showed up and just kind of did their own thing. But no, that was powerful. So getting back to Wendy Williams, you've seen a lot. I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of the things that have been going on lately.
Sure.
With Wendy Williams.
Yeah.
My opinion is that, and I will get into this as we go along, but the media loves to put out certain things to try to frame different people. And I think they're doing that. They do that with Wendy Williams.
Of course they do. So let me explain something to you because I want to respect your question, but I just want to make one more point. A lot of times people will pit people against each other just for sport. One of those people, depending on who you ask and what you choose to believe, but I know enough to know that I'm right. Do you know that there was a time where Mario was looked upon as an Usher replacement? And somebody may have, allegedly, depending on who you ask, made Usher to feel like Mario was there to replace him. The same way that Phyllis Hyman was allegedly replaced by Whitney Houston. And the same way that Milli Vanilli wound up broke and penniless behind this person replacing them and acting like he had no idea that they were lip syncing even though he was the president of the label. All of these things have one common denominator. If there's one lesson I learned from Ricky Smiley, it was, who's the common denominator? And if there's the common denominator, then there's your answer.
Yes.
Clive Davis. But getting back to Wendy.
We're going to talk about Clive.
We're going to get back to it, but I just want to put that out because I didn't want to go too far. Right. Now, when it comes to Wendy Williams is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Wendy Williams is not going to be bossed around by anybody. Wendy Williams has always been sharp. People act like when you go through things, when you have a mental health break, when you go through breakups or tough times in your marriage, when people are trying to play behind the scenes about your show and do all of these things because you have health issues and personal issues and things happening with your child, that you're not supposed to feel that. That's not how any of that works. Allegedly, depending on who you ask, because I don't know for sure, But how many times has that company tried to replace Wendy Williams with people like, oh, what's her name? I can see her clear as day. One of them White Housewives, Bethany Frankel. Like, they tried to Wendyfy Bethany Frankel, and it did not work. Then you want to pit Sherry Shepherd, who is a wonderful individual, against Wendy Williams, and it did not work. Wendy is dangerous because she is a disruptor. There is nothing more dangerous than someone who understands who they are, whose they are, what they have, and why people care about it. I learned that from Wendy Williams, and she never forgot it. So y'all can sit up here and say that she ain't in her mental faculties. Well, it's real funny how quickly the bank wanted to take her money. And you know, the first thing they do when you don't do what they want you to do is somehow they find a way to hem up your money. Ask Kanye.
Yep.
Ask Puff. Remember that Diageo thing? And I'm not excusing behaviors.
Right.
I'm talking about what happens conveniently or coincidentally around the time that a scandal breaks. You and I have lived long enough to know that Diddy ain't invent no freak off, and we also know that Wendy ain't never been slow.
Right.
So all we got to do is discredit you enough where if we can't have you the way we want you, and if you can't dance to the tune we want you to dance to, then we're going to destroy you. Think about it. There's this thing I call, having lived and worked in the industry for so long, called the conversation. You can choose to believe what I say or not, but I'm not here to lie. I'm retired, been retired for 15 years, turned down 28 jobs to come out of retirement. What I will say is there are people who get to a certain level, and then all of a sudden, some people come and they'll back up the Brinks truck, or they'll say, hey, you do this thing. You just have to do this. Say this, wear that, denounce this person, don't deal with that person, and everything you could ever possibly want will be laid at your feet.
Terms and conditions.
That's what we call them. Having said that, do you think maybe, just maybe, when you say no to that conversation in those, as you eloquently put it, that there aren't consequences for that? You either wind up dead, in jail, or made to look crazy. And if you look at who's dead, in jail, or made to look crazy, at one point, they were here.
Right.
It happens a lot with us, but it happens to a whole bunch of other people, regardless of color. But specifically when it comes to us, because we don't have the infrastructure that other folks have, you know.
And we're not supposed to say no.
How dare you?
That. How dare you say no? The minister talked about the conversation that he had with those powerful people, and they presented terms to him that he said no self-respecting man would ever accept. And, you know, those are the terms that they put before those people who, as you mentioned, know who they are and whose they are, and they want to see who they can make fold. You know, who they can get to break.
Right.
And if you're not folding and you're not breaking, then they summon all of their forces against you. And the minister talked about that. He said he told them that you can summon all your forces against me, but I'll be the winner, living or dead. And you see, with him, they have summoned their forces against him, and they have labeled him the leading anti-Semite. Then they add other people to that list, such as Kanye and other people who stand up and push back against them, and point out and highlight the injustices that they've contributed to our people. And those type of things, as you mentioned, are presented. So it's just, it's funny, as you mentioned, that around the time a scandal breaks out, then you have these labelings. And the minister talked about how it is crucifixion.
That's exactly what it is.
Crucifixion, in our minds, a lot of our people always think of, you know, the physical being nailed to the cross. But when you get into the spiritual and the symbolic nature of it all, then you talk about you can go into the character assassination and those things also, which lead to a public crucifixion. Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Bill Cosby.
Absolutely.
You know, the list goes on and on. So seeing the same thing essentially happen with Wendy Williams.
Yeah.
So, but how do we go from Wendy Williams to Ricky Smiley?
Oh, there's a lot of little pieces in between that journey. But ironically, this is how God works. Because this just came to me from the timeline. When I wound up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, keep in mind I'm a Laugh House original, so I'm still doing stand-up and radio at this time. And a lot of clubs or promoters wouldn't rock with me because in the Bible Belt, at that particular time, they didn't want their afternoon drive guy to be doing blue comedy. And so I was kept off of a lot of shows, and Ricky Smiley walks into my studio in June of 2000 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And he says, "Hey, so they say that you do stand up. You gonna do some time tonight?" I was like, "They're not gonna let me on that stage." He said, "What you mean they ain't gonna let you on that stage? It's my stage. I'm gonna pay you. Hey, pay him out my pocket. You going up tonight, kid?" So he let me do 15 minutes on his stage.
Wow.
Fast forward 2007, I am unceremoniously fired from K104 by the person who is now D.L. Hughley's producer, Skip Cheatham. And shout out to Skip Cheatham. I'd have fired me too. Let me explain who I am. I am a person that is not meant to work for other people because I want to do things my way. Have you ever seen...
Sound like me.
Have you ever seen Avengers Infinity War and Endgame?
Man, I've watched that movie 700 times.
Okay, good. So you my kind of people. I know you are. But there's this part where Doctor Strange is sitting there and he's using the Eye of Agamotto, the time stone, and he's...
Right.
When I look at any problem, I've already figured out, I've gone through every possible scenario, and I'm like, this is the most likely scenario where we can win. And sometimes there's only one scenario, and if you don't take this one scenario, this ain't gonna work the way you think.
Right.
But my problem with my impetuous youth was that it's not my ball. I don't own it. Even if I'm right, I'm wrong because that's not what they want to do, and they are the ones writing my check.
Yep.
I can't be mad at them for that. So go ahead and fire me. Go ahead and understand and know if I'm working, late nights from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., I'm gonna be home in my condo till it's time to go because I'm the late night guy. I'm not the morning guy. I'm not the afternoon guy. I'm not the midday girl or the night guy. I'm the late night guy.
Right. Why do I need to be doing anything until it's my time to show up?
Right. Why am I gonna come kick it with you?
Right.
I'm not a social dude. You know what I'm saying? Like. I'm personable. I'm nice. I haven't been disrespectful to anybody up in here. I like people in certain spurts. When I leave here, I have one more show to do. Then I'm getting on the plane. Then I'm going to go to the end of my couch and I am going to decompress and relax because I don't like all that. So leave K104 and I fly to go see WrestleMania in Detroit. I come back from WrestleMania and the late Doug Banks, yet another giant whose shoulders I got to skip on. Wow. Doug Banks was like, "Yeah, kid, that sucks. Give me your tape." He did to me what Russ did to me or did for me. And he said, "Listen, go down to Radio 1. I think they got something for you. It might not necessarily be sexy, but it's production, it's a job. They'll bring you in part-time, and I'm pretty sure they're going to let you just work how many ever hours. And if you do what I know you'll do, you'll be running that place inside of a month." And I'm like, Doug Banks thinks I can run a place inside of a month. Again, Doug Banks is a hero. If it wasn't for Doug Banks, there's no Rick Party. Again, there's no Dave Anderson. Giants. Sure enough, I get there. And the program director is a guy named John Candelaria. We all called him John Candy for short. And John Candy says, "Yeah, I'm going to have you in production. You're a beast at production. You can do skits and whatnot. And then I kind of want to help you help the morning show because you've got morning show experience. We know, I know what you do. And have you ever met Ricky Smiley?" I said, "Yes, I have." So I had not seen this man since he paid me out his pocket and put me on that stage 9 years beforehand. And I go home and I find one of my scrapbooks, and in that scrapbook is this picture we took in the studio in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I said, "Ricky, you don't even remember this, but you pay me out your pocket and let me perform. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. And Ricky was like, see, that's what I be talking about. I just be doing stuff just to be doing it. I don't be looking for nothing. This is how God works, so on and so forth. And at that particular time, their producer had a lot of other stuff going on. When you fast forward, there is a break. I don't remember if it was Labor Day weekend, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, I had Ricky and all the other members of the morning show individually come into the studio. I was like, just read everything that's on this paper. And then I took every last crazy bit where I knew everybody laughed. Mm-hmm. And it was the best of show anybody had ever heard in the company. Their words, not mine. So when the executive producer was unceremoniously let go, I took that gig. Mm-hmm. Right. And of course they didn't want to pay me because they paid me, but they didn't pay me like they paid the guy they fired. Okay. Even with all my experience. So, well, you're young and I said, no. I was young when I was 9. Mm-hmm. I was young when I was 15. I was young when I was snot-nosed running behind D. Lee and smoking Tony and Wendy Williams. Mm-hmm. I was young then. I was young when I did Desert Storm Radio with DJ Clue. I was young then. I'm almost 30. To quote Birdman, put some respect on my name.
Got to.
And one of Head Crack says, they ain't going to. I'm not here if it's not for Head Crack. Head Crack is like a brother to me. Shoot, I probably still owe Head Crack some money. He looked out for me, but that's a story for a little bit later. He said, you going to need an agent. And he gave me the phone number of his agent, a guy named Ward White. Mm-hmm. Ward White was also Erykah Badu's agent. Like, Ward White is a monster, black guy, lawyer, super sharp.
Shout out to Ward White.
Shout out to Ward White. Ward White, listen. He was like, this is what he will get. This is what he won't get. When it comes to his bonus structure, it's going to be this, that, and the third. And he said, listen, Dave, it is a shitty deal, but it's better than the shit they were trying to hand you, right. Respectfully. And I took it and I said, okay, nobody believes in this show except us. And I poured everything I had into getting that show to be what I knew it could be at that particular time. They've gone way beyond what I did, but you can't divorce the fruit of a thing from the root of a thing. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple of things that I had done that most people didn't do. Ricky's like, well, what else should we do? I said, we need a reality show. He said, a reality show? That's never going to work. I said, okay. And he still gave me a budget. Mm-hmm. And we brought in this team from Houston and we shot a pilot, which depending on who you ask, became what you would know as his reality show, Ricky Smiley for Real, much, much later on after I left. Right. But the actual framework is what we did. And with that, there was certain things we would do. So me and Head Crack would make fun of Tamika Foster Raymond lovingly because we black. That's how we do. Mm-hmm. And so, people would say these horrible things about Tamika Foster, who's a lovely woman. But, they was like, why is she with Usher? She older. She don't look like Chili look. You know how, you remember, if you go back, the talk, we're vicious. We destroy our women. Yeah. And so in the name of human morning radio, anytime we would interview Usher, I would go in and then redub stuff, right? So I could do a pretty decent Usher speaking voice. And so you couldn't tell where his stuff ended and my stuff started. It's like, and Tamika's here. And then Tamika say hi. Oh my God. So we took that clip and I sent it over to Fred at Media Takeout. Mm-hmm. Ricky Smiley's disrespecting women and he's calling beast. I wrote the headline. I did all this. All of this is because I wanted to get in Miami. I wanted to get us in bigger markets other than Augusta and St. Louis. No, this to the good people of Augusta and St. Louis, but I'm trying to grow here.
Right, you got to grow.
And controversy, according to Eric Bischoff, creates cash. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh yeah, this is going to go front page of Media Takeout. Oh, we got calls and people, everybody was pissed off. Yeah. And I said, do you notice how everybody's talking about it? All of a sudden, hey, what do we got to do to get the show here? What do we got to do to get the show here? So by the time I left, we were in 30 markets.
Wow.
Wendy was just starting the Wendy Williams talk show. Mm-hmm. And so she was getting ready to gear up for her 6-week sneak peek. And so she was doing the rounds and she wound up coming into the Ricky Smiley morning show. And she said to me, I told you so. And she said to them, I have a thing about young people, encouraging young people, being there for young people. And I told him he was going to be all right. So it was like this tearjerker full circle moment, because y'all can say whatever you want, queen of gossip, this, that, and the third. That woman is my hero. And sometimes the best way you can show love is not by giving somebody a hand out, but giving them the boot out the nest. So yeah, that's the transition from Wendy to Ricky and how that correlates.
Wow. And I really want to stay on this media, radio, music industry piece, black media piece, because and the reason why is because I think it's so important. And that is the driving force for why I started this show and got into podcasting and things of that nature myself, because I felt that there was a void of honest black media.
Yes.
And you hear a lot of mainstream media, whether you talk about print with Wall Street Journal or you know those print, or when you get into MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and all of these are presenting a slanted narrative on news and politics and issues in our community. So I felt the void to be able to provide a voice for that. And even when you get into hip hop and community and culture, whereas you see a lot of the big platforms surround themselves around a lot of, gossip and different things like that. And I wanted to bring a different element. So that the importance of black media with that. And your experience and everything you did with going through what you went through with Wendy Williams and Ricky Smiley. When you look at the landscape now, recently, Roland Martin had some words for Charlemagne.
Certainly.
And there has been Breakfast Club, people who love the Breakfast Club, people who don't like the Breakfast Club. I, being a fan of black media, black culture, I don't agree with the Breakfast Club all the time.
Certainly
but
not.
I love the Breakfast Club because I love the interviews that they have with the artists and with the different performers and entertainers and things like that.
Certainly.
But one thing Roland said when he addressed Charlemagne was he talked about journalistic integrity, and he talked about the necessity for dealing with the facts, and to not have the power of the microphone, the power of a platform, and to put out information that is inaccurate.
Certainly.
And I felt that from Roland on that point. And I certainly don't agree with Roland on a lot of things. I am cussed out by Roland, blocked on Twitter by Roland. Right? So
you dumbass. Go to my iPad.
So yeah. But when he right,
right.
So looking at that, the landscape of black media, what are you seeing, and from your perspective, as the trajectory of it, and what can be done better?
So a few things. The first thing is we can't really talk about journalistic integrity if you're taking huge amounts of money from political campaigns on one side.
Great point.
That's the start and the end of that for me.
Great point.
The other part of that.
But before you go forward, because that's an actual fact, Roland. It's an actual fact that we know that you, Al Sharpton, who has the Black Action Network, were paid to promote Vice President Kamala Harris. That is an actual fact. Now, so we just want to make sure that we got that. That is a fact of history.
Yes.
That's documentation. Absolutely. So, continue.
So you don't really have a leg to stand on journalistically when it comes to that. The other part of that is I'm still a little confused as to what Charlemagne said that was particularly wrong. Was it that he said something wrong, or was it that he took a slant that you have been paid to disagree with? Meaning he basically, and again, I have not spoke to Charlemagne about this particular issue, but what I gathered was he was saying the factual part. If in fact we know, regardless of where you stand on either side of the aisle, if in fact you know that in order to end the government shutdown, there were 15 proposals put up by the right, and 15 different times Democrats shot it down, then who is responsible for holding up the government? At that point, if you're shutting it down so that we can get back to this, so that we can work out all the other details and all the other things together, then you got to say, well, the Democrats are that. But then the other argument is, well,
They don't have the power in the House. They don't have the power.
They had
in the
7
Senate.
votes.
That was Roland's point. They didn't have the power to be able to stop the government shutdown because they don't run the House. They don't run the Senate.
Again, they weren't the ones holding it up. And again, I cannot stand conservatives because a lot of conservatives have not conserved anything. However, a lot of the liberals have not been liberal in helping the black community over the past 60 years. We have to politically be a lot more intelligent and start calling balls and strikes. They're bad people on both sides. So when it comes to Roland chastising Charlemagne, I am of the professional opinion that it is more about the fact that Roland does not want the rise of anyone who can take attention away from him that he can't buddy up with and control. And we see who Roland buddies up with and helps versus who he's got a problem with. By the way, if your true goal as a black man and as a person who loves and admires the minister, I'm sure you will appreciate this, should be unity regardless of where you stand. It is a historical fact that Minister Farrakhan had a conversation with former President Barack Obama and said, if you got to denounce me, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't know exactly what the minister said, but it was along those lines because it's about the greater good.
Yes.
Why in the world would you sit there and get to a point where every time somebody says something you don't like, you get on your little YouTube channel and you start going,
You're a dumbass. And this is why.
My daddy, God rest his soul, said you get a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. However, if you bring it to my door, I will eviscerate you. Roland Martin is as pleasant as a colonoscopy without the propofol when it comes to people he does not like. Why? Sir, you are way too old. You are older than I am. I am half a century at this point, just shy of it. I just turned 48, so let's just round up.
Oh, yeah.
You are definitely at least in your 50s, if not 60 at this point.
I think he said he was 57.
Yeah, so you're way too old to, especially if you're such a great journalist, to not have the power of words to be able to articulate your point without calling people dumbasses. And as much as you pretend to be this black leader, I'm pretty sure the minister would tell you, and I've watched the minister since I was knee-high to a tree stump, we have to have a certain level of physical fitness. I ain't never in my life, and again, I'm not in the nation, I'm a Baptist. I have not seen an unfit member of the Nation of Islam. When I've had conferences and I've had brothers from the FOI do my security, all of them were on point. They were in shape. They looked a certain way and they understood hand-to-hand combat and they were aware of their surroundings. If you had to start the revolution, Brother King Cam, right now, would Roland Martin be on the list of the people you would follow?
Not on the list, brother. Not on the list in that aspect. And let me say this. Let me say this, though, because Roland Martin has extended his platform to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when others have not. So Roland, again, I don't agree with him on his points, but I appreciate his willingness to do that and to put out the truth.
Certainly.
In the same aspect, in the same vein, yeah, Roland Martin could work in the media department of the revolution, somewhere, with the camera. But he's not going to be on the front lines, bro.
Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, we still have to be diligent in absolutely everything, and that's not me fat shaming. If you know my story, you know how big I was. So it's not that. Now, when it comes to Charlemagne, I think Charlemagne believes what he believes, and there's been plenty of times where I've put up something, talking about, if you're upset at Doge, look what the Clintons did, and Charlemagne will be in my DM. Dave, why'd you say that? Because this, that, and the third, this, that, and the third. I'm like, damn, do you have like an alarm? Do they like hit you the second I put something
notifications for Dave.
Yeah, he got my notifications up.
On. Yes.
But, I tell people all the time, Charlemagne and I have always had a Magneto-Xavier relationship. I'm more Magneto. But I love him. He's my brother. We don't always see eye to eye. We don't always agree. And that's been our dynamic for 2 decades. But on this one, I'm with him. I'm sorry. I just don't think that Roland Martin should think that he all of a sudden became black people or black America's leading voice. One time, I'll give you an example. I saw this brilliant 45-minute dissertation he gave about how these white media companies will build themselves off the backs of black people. And he made the point about Tubi. And I said to him, Roland, and I wrote it because I wanted it to be documented. I said, Roland, well, if that's the case, you got this Black Star Network. Why don't you start an entertainment division of your Black Star Network and make it happen?
Why would I do that? That's just stupid.
Because you just complained for 45 minutes that there's not enough black media controlled and operated by black people when it comes to the entertainment part, and you're sick of white people taking advantage of black people and their talent and building their stuff and then forgetting about us because you don't want to power Fox News. So then why wouldn't you just give them an opportunity? Do you see what I'm saying here?
Right.
Some of that just does not make sense. Now, there's one more thing I want to say when it comes to all of that. I do not think the bar should be giving the minister a platform, because giving the minister a platform is an honor. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you love pork and white women. The minister is for our people, period, point blank. Also, in 2020, the minister gave a speech on the 4th of July.
The Criterion.
The Criterion. There were 3 networks who were supposed to carry it. Do you remember who they were?
Yes. There was Revolt.
That's one.
There was, what is that one?
Fox Soul.
Fox Soul, yes. Fox Soul.
Do you know what the third one was? I guarantee you he gets this wrong.
I don't know the third one.
The third one was Business Bully TV. Before there was a Zeus, before there was any of these little scrolling streamers, there was Business Bully TV, and it was all black people, positive, uplift, this, that, and the third. And somehow, Fox Soul backed out.
They did.
And somehow, something happened to Revolt Stream.
They tried to interrupt it.
Mine went just fine. And I didn't brag about it, and I ain't talked about it from that day to this. You're supposed to give the minister a platform for what he sacrificed for our people. That's the least you could do. Aside from that, other than telling people they're dumbasses and telling grown heterosexual men that they should vote like a black woman, what are you doing for our people other than calling us dumbasses and being contrarian to other people throughout black media where they have dissenting and very necessary points of view? I think Roland Martin is necessary. I have said that on the record. I don't agree with 95% of what Roland Martin says because I don't think it comes from an honest place. My personal opinion. Professionally, he has every right to say it. I'm not going to begrudge him, a Charlemagne, a Boyce Watkins, a Tariq Nasheed, a Dr. Umar, and God knows I got a lot of issues with Dr. Umar. I'm not going to begrudge another black man the opportunity to say whatever they need to say because I don't want anybody doing that to me. But keep in mind, when you put something out in the lexicon, I got every right to say what I feel about it. But again, if you so big on uplifting black people, when's the last time you held these Democrats who have been paying you accountable for delivering something tangible over the past 60 years? Not even reparations, just, I don't know. How's the reading levels at the Georgia public school system right now?
Oh, not so good.
Oh, yeah. There's barely a child you can find reading at grade level.
You know, people operating as functional illiterates.
Where they at, though? So if we're going to talk about moving the culture forward, shouldn't we talk about making sure that we have a hand in our education? But we got so much time talking about, well, they're taking the black history out of the school. I'm sorry. Brother King Cam, I consider you a person of extraordinary intelligence. So I'm going to ask you to go back into your mind and humor me for one moment. Name me the Chinese American hero you learned about in school. Stop. Name me the Puerto Rican hero you learned about in school. The Korean American hero you learned about in school. Hell, give me the Jewish American hero you learned about in school. Can you?
No.
But they're taking the black history out of the school. So we continue to refer to the government and their indoctrination camps, schools, as a problem because we want because the government's suppressing us so badly. We want our oppressors to teach us about us. I can't think that the minister, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, or anybody would be pleased with that level of apathy. Maybe it's me.
I think we've gotten so far away from the mission. I think we've gotten so far away from what Dr. Martin Luther King was fighting for. And he articulated himself very well. So I don't see how we get it confused, but I do see how the bag can confuse it for you.
Yes.
You see, and I think when you come in with good intentions, but then they get clouded by money, now your opinion is swayed because it's as what politicians, what we know about politicians is it's not about what you believe, it's about who paying you to say what you gonna say. And that's the problem. The politicians come in sincere, but then the donors pay them to say certain things. And now that sincerity is going out the door because it's about the money. So we've lost track of the liberation and the freedom fight for our people, which is to truly be free. And freedom in its true essence is not relying on anyone to do anything for you except yourself. Correct. So the point that you brought up about Black history, regardless to the fact if they're going to teach it to us in school or not, it's not the responsibility of your oppressor to teach you about yourself.
Message.
That's not the responsibility of your open enemy. That's the responsibility of your parents. That's the responsibility of the community leaders. That's the responsibility of those of us in our community to make sure that the history is passed down. Last point.
Yes, sir.
When you go into other communities,
Yes, sir.
they have taken charge of that. Do you know why the Holocaust is in the lexicon today? The Holocaust is in the lexicon in 2025 because Jewish people in the community won't ever let it die.
Right.
They told you they will never forget. Never forget. Meaning that lesson and Jewish history is going to be taught to their children, passed down for decades and decades and decades, unapologetically.
Yes.
We have to do the same thing. You see every time they get a hold of one of our entertainers, athletes, they snatch them up and they take them by the collar and they sit them down at a Holocaust museum and then they talk to them about the Holocaust and they educate you on their history. We have to be that aggressive, that assertive, and that straightforward about our history to our children, to our people in our community, and those who need a lesson. Because white people need a lesson on our history. A thorough lesson, because the version that most of them have gotten, 85%, they got from the 10% is a whitewashed version of the true history of Black people in America. So they really need to be educated on that. So we have to take back the responsibility. This is what King Randall was telling Roland Martin on his show.
Yeah,
this
he
is
disrespected a kid.
And this is some of the sentiments that Dr. Umar was telling him on his show, right? And again, I believe when the money comes into play, people have allowed their morals and their principles to be shaken, and we got to do a better job at that.
Certainly.
So, but I want to transition because we didn't even get into your Teddy Pendergrass. We didn't even get into the Teddy P. You got to talk about being the background dancer at Teddy P.
No, not dancer. I'm not Tupac.
Oh, singer.
Singer,
okay.
Okay.
The background singer with Teddy P.
Yeah.
Becoming an executive producer.
Yes, sir.
And the first social media
director for a Fortune 500 company. Yes, sir.
Yes, and then we got to talk about the business bully.
Yes, sir. All right, so that was a lot. So it's a regular day. I am minding my business. My mother wakes me up. I think it was like a Saturday morning, and she says, You got to get up. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm chilling. Like, I did my homework. Chores are done. Like, right. I'm trying to chill because I'm a young teenager at this point, and I want to sleep on a Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Right? She's like, nah, Teddy Pendergrass is having auditions. He's starting a choir. Yeah? Close the door. Let me give you what you've been waiting for. Baby, I got so much love to give. So I went down there cold and auditioned.
Wow.
Me, Robbie Partlow from City High, Reese, there was a handful of us, and he wound up getting 60 kids, but there was about 6 or 7 of us that was really about that life. Like even when we weren't practicing, we was out. When they say take a break, we going outside to sing the songs we want to sing, right? Because the acoustics is Teddy rented out an entire wing of the community college of Philadelphia for us to rehearse, and so we be out there singing and it was an amazing time. The Pendergrass Institute for Musical and Performing Arts, which is what Teddy called it, was an amazing time. And then there's going to be people in the comments that, well, he bullshit and he lying. And no, VH1's behind the music. You will see a very young Dave Anderson, no beard, glasses, bow tie, singing right behind Teddy Pendergrass. I'm also the youngest person to re-record the twist with Chubby Checker. I also got to sing back up for Gerald Levert, and Gerald Levert pulled me and Robbie Partlow, God rest his soul, because Robbie just died in July. From City High. He pulled us to the side and he said, "Y'all bored, huh?" He said, "Yeah, y'all can sing, but y'all bored." I said, "A little bit." He said, "Never get bored playing the hits." He said, "Because this might be, the 100th time you sang this song. But to the people in the audience, that's the first time they made love to somebody. That's the first time, they was playing in the background when they had their first date. You always play the hits." Gerald had an phenomenal work ethic. And even though Teddy was bound to a wheelchair, his ears were sharp, and his ability to understand, how to pour into young people was second to none. He was up on the gospel stage play game way before Tyler Perry. He did Your Arms Too Short to Box with God. He showed you there's no excuse. His wheelchair was set up where the whole thing would just and then lay back. So when he was tired, he would just and lay back. And then when it was time, he'd be like, Dave, hit that note one more time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
That's just how he was. And he had people who would direct us all the time, because it was a rarity, when he would come through to rehearsals, because he was like Michael Jackson in that way. You just show him once and then he good.
Yes, sir.
But he would do things like he'd have pool parties, and he made sure, as hard as we worked, we had something to show for the fruits of our labor. And it was arguably the most amazing experience. I can remember being 10 years old and watching George Benson, who was a good friend of my stepfather's. And if you're not familiar with George Benson, arguably one of the best jazz performers who's ever lived, just a monster with it. He played at the Valley Forge Music Fair, and to understand that stage, the Valley Forge Music Fair, it was around. So the seats were all around it, and it rotated. And I'm 10 years old watching this man on the guitar. Are we really happy here? That's just killing it. Bip, bip. And I'm like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'm going to be on that stage in the round.
Right.
7 years later, I'm on that stage with Teddy Pendergrass, Gerald Levert, Sean Levert, God rest his soul, God rest Gerald's soul. Chubby Checker, insane. I've always had this thing where I'm going to manifest my shot. I don't know how, and I've learned from Les Brown, how's not your problem. You see something, you visualize it, and it has to come to pass as long as you don't give up on it. It took me 7 years to go from being in the audience and backstage with George Benson to being on that stage in the round with arguably the purveyor of what sexy R&B is. I learned marketing from Teddy Pendergrass, women's only shows. And I was like, what were you thinking when you did that? He was like, I knew it was going to sell, it was going to piss people off. He said, you might not know this, but there were men who would dress like women just to come to see the show because they liked my music that much.
Wow.
And he said, my whole thing was, I'm not trying to get with all these women. I want to send them home to these brothers. So the next time I come to town, they're going to be like, baby, go on ahead. I'll see you when you get back.
Right.
He thought that way. He gave out teddy bears and roses and all, everything. His pool was in the shape of a teddy bear, and he had TP on everything. His towels were monogrammed. I ain't seen nobody short of Elvis have his house the way he had his house laid out. He had everything in its place, and everything had a purpose. And you wasn't just standing around being some onlooker. If you were working for Teddy Pendergrass, you were working for Teddy Pendergrass. So again, yet another giant whose shoulders I got to dance on.
And I guess we was communicating telepathically, because part of the next thing I was going to ask you was how did that shape your mind and business, but now you hit right on it with
Next
the marketing, right, and everything. So you hit on that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you mentioned something about this school here.
Yeah.
You said it does not take 15 years and $2.8 million to start a school.
Oh, we're talking about Dr. Umar now.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You know, because I wanted to know from you, if you were building a school, what would you have done differently to open the school?
Okay, so let me explain something to you. Let's go into Umar land for a minute. And let's say everything that Dr. Umar is saying is absolutely 100% factual. There's no reason to refute absolutely anything. You've been black your entire life, I'm imagining.
I believe so.
Okay, cool. So you're not transracial by any far stretch. Okay, good. As long as I've seen you, you've been black.
Yeah.
So you do know how hard it is to get information as a member of the nation. You know how hard it is to get information into the hands of your people. Thus, the final call was created. Please stop me where I go wrong. If you know that the biggest weapon they have against us is anti-education or indoctrination, you think they just gonna let you build a school like a brick and mortar business without any pushback?
Right.
So the first thing I would have done was take it online. That is the first thing. The second thing I would have done is, can you please name me any of the employees of the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy who are not Umar Johnson?
No, sir.
Can you point to any curriculum that Dr. Umar has produced to say that this is what we're going to be teaching these boys?
No, sir.
No, you cannot. So we don't have a curriculum. We do not have anybody that you can name who said that they are going to be teaching at that school. And how could anybody take that job when, statistically speaking, King Randall, who is younger than my oldest child, he is 25, my oldest child is 26, started, when Umar started this, King Randall was in the 6th grade. That is a statistical fact. When he started this, he was in the 6th grade. You can't hire a staff and have them wait 14, 15 years.
Right.
Then it's the HVAC. Then it's the floors. So, funny fact, I have a bunch of friends, partners, businesses that I have fractional ownership in. Buddy of mine who redid my house several times. His name Romar Drake. Romar Drake is arguably the best man I know with a hammer short of John Henry. That is he is what Picasso is to paintings when it comes to contracting. The man is a beast with a hammer.
Yes.
I said, yo, Dr. Umar's looking for somebody to do the floors and the ceilings. Go down there and see him.
Right.
He was like, bet, Dave, I'm going to go down there and see him.
Okay.
He went down there and saw him, took a picture with him, gave him an estimate. It cost more to redo the floors in my house than the estimate he gave Dr. Umar for both buildings. Yet and still, floors wasn't done, holes in the ceiling to this day. When you have a business and you are a businessman, and you are taking any type of funds from the public, when you're a publicly traded company, they do want a report or an accounting of what you're doing with the funds. That is not an unreasonable request. Is there anybody in here who can define me and tell me that that's not a reasonable request?
No, that's very reasonable.
So whenever somebody asks, all of a sudden, you
Blocked.
You blocked. You're going to do that.
You're going to a block party.
Taking all of that aside, if I'm the world's most requested speaker, I'm the #1 scholar. I don't know the chart that tracks that, but I'll take it at its words because we're in the universe where Umar's right. If I'm the world's #1 requested speaker, why am I not just taking my #1 requested speaker money and just filling in the gaps? Because even if I take Umar Johnson, King Kong Consciousness, Inc., and give a loan to FDMG, I could write that off. Could I not?
You got a point. You're right.
So why does it take 14 years and $2.8 million allegedly to start one school? Black people need education now. Our black boys are being lost. I have something that I have coined the YN apocalypse, but that's starting to change. You're starting to see young brothers in quarter zips and taking it up.
Zip trend on
the quarter.
TikTok?
My wife told me about the quarter zip trend, and I was like, you know what? I like that because I like quarter zips. I feel like it's my time now.
Yeah. You like the quarter zip? I seen it on one of them blog sites, and I was like, yo, that's dope. I love the movement. I'm not a quarter zip guy. I prefer a full suit.
Yes, sir.
Or, you know, some other rendition of a combination.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't necessarily, I never like the quarter zip like that, but I love the mindset behind the quarter
Yes,
zip,
sir.
you know, and some brothers look good with the quarter zip. So,
Yes, sir.
you know, but I love the mindset, cleaning up and everything like that. So just a side note on that.
Yeah. But make no mistake, right? Medgar Evers was killed in a suit. Martin Luther King was killed in a suit. Malcolm X was killed in a suit. They will kill you in a suit. But you could have easily, especially when you had the pandemic as the perfect cover, because we're still in the world that exists, except for in this world, Umar's 100% on the level, and he's right. You could have taken 1/10 of that money and started an online curriculum and had those kids behind a paywall, because the one thing we all complained about as parents, I don't know, do you have children?
I do.
How many?
4.
How old?
3 to 18.
Okay, so you had children during the pandemic. So you know what that was like when they were sitting in front of that computer. So if you're going to be forced to sit in front of a computer because you're part of the great experiment, not Tuskegee, but along those lines, jab. Right. Anyway, why would you not give these boys an opportunity to at least create something supplemental like EDX or Khan Academy? You could have done that, and you would have been the biggest thing in black education since Mary McLeod Bethune started Bethune-Cookman College. But you did not. There have been bus drivers, there have been web developers, there have been authors, there have been people who write curricula for a living who have all come to you, and you have told them a resounding collective no each and every time. So, simply put, I would have asked and accepted all of the help I could get. And anytime somebody came asking for something or asking for an accounting of what was going on, your solution was either to block them or have a block party. How about we get off the block and block off some time to be accountable to this school that has not happened yet? But that's just me.
Agreed. I agree. I definitely think it started sincerely, and I think that, his mind won't allow him to accept the help and to get it done, for whatever reason that may be.
Right.
But, that's just that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to get into the Business Bully LLC.
Sir. Yes, sir.
You are a business coach.
Yes, sir.
With a no-nonsense approach to business.
Certainly.
So could you talk about your business career?
Sure.
Because you being having 25 years in radio and now retiring at 34.
Yeah. Yes.
How have you been able to create businesses, develop businesses from that point to now?
I cheated. Here's what I mean. My father bought a corner store on a cop's salary in the hood of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, called it Anderson Summit Terrace Market Incorporated. And so my Uncle Player, his name is George Jr., but we called him Uncle Player because Uncle Player was a player. But Uncle Player was a self-taught chef, and so we turned the upstairs into a lounge and catering business, right? And from the time I was 7 years old, my father put me behind that register, and then he would go off to the cash and carry and stock things and this, that, and the third. But I was there a lot of the time. Out of the 8-10 hours we were open, I'd be there at least 6 hours by myself. You throw your child into the fire. So if a 7-year-old is running a corner store, right? And that doesn't mean my aunties and uncles didn't come in and check on me, make sure I didn't burn the place down.
Right.
But I got an insight as to what that looked like from a very young age. My mother used to run the salon at John Wanamaker's in Center City. There's a movie called Mannequin. Estelle Getty from the Golden Girls was in that movie. My mom did her hair. My mom would do hair for black models, for people like Bill Blass, Yves Saint Laurent, Ralph Lauren. And again, this is still a kid who came up poor, but I got these glimpses of things. And then my mom was a teacher by trade, so she got tired of standing on her feet. She went back to teaching for a while, and all of a sudden she got the bug. And at 74th and Ogons in Philadelphia, around the corner from my grandmother's house, my mother created a salon called Girlfriends. And if you go into a salon, and any lady will tell you, you see the wine and cheese and the trays and the charcuterie and the TVs up against the wall. My mom was doing that in the early 90s. The only thing is my mom didn't have me to be like, hey, you should do this and you should do that. And this is how you market it. And you need to trademark this. And this process needs to be this. And your SOP needs to be that. So I had all of that foundationally. Come to find out, my great-great-grandfather in Pittsburgh started a chain of barbershops that catered towards men way before there was a hammer and nails. Right. So it's ingrained in my DNA. So is the fact that when my parents raised me, there was one rule. You can pick up anything, but if you put it down, you can't pick it up till you're grown. So that's how you get, playing 7 instruments. That's how you get singing backgrounds. That's how you get winning art contests. That's how you develop a polymath. Consistency will beat genius when genius don't work. Having said that, we are Black people in America. And let me be clear. We do not have time to play because they ain't playing about us. They don't play when it comes to collecting our royalties before we see them. They don't play about us having horrible food and horrible habits. They don't play about us making sure that we are fat, sick, nearly dead, and all have the sugar. The reason we call it the sugar is because somebody came up with that in marketing. But it's funny. Are you familiar with type 3 diabetes?
I've heard about it, yeah.
Yeah. That's what you would call Alzheimer's and dementia because it's sugar on the brain.
Wow.
So we call it Alzheimer's and dementia because if you call it type 3 diabetes, then we would start to evaluate the fact that how come we don't have monk fruit in everything? How is it that these things continue to move in a certain way? So because these people don't play about us, I don't play about you coming to me, giving me your hard-earned money and saying, I need you to help me build this thing out. Give me some structure. I got this idea, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Now, what I have learned, not only from my experiences in radio, but also from other people's experiences before me is I will never want for you what you don't want for you, because all that's going to do is break my heart. Because just because I see the potential in you doesn't mean that you can live up to said potential. Are you familiar with acorns?
Yes.
Do you know what an acorn becomes? An oak tree.
Right.
85,000 acorns every season are produced from one oak tree. Each one of them has the potential of being a mighty oak. The majority of acorns wind up in the stomach of squirrels and deer. So most potential, if you break it down that way, is tantamount to squirrel and deer poop. So we ain't got time to talk about potential, what you could be. I'm talking about what actually is and the steps to get there. I can get you there if you're willing to bury your ego and follow a recipe. Everything has steps. Success leaves clues. I don't have time to be your buddy. I don't have time to love on you. If you want Iyanla Van Zandt to fix your life, and if she's too busy, go get TD Jakes. But if you want your business to thrive without all of the, stripper money guns and the silk pajamas and the look at me because I got this type of house. Listen, I'm in the house my mother gave me, and that's how I was able to build my business. You want to know why? Free and clear. And my mother said, go get him, boy. That's it. I didn't have no Donald Trump loan, this, that, and the third. But not having rent and being able to take that and then build something, I cheated. Not gonna lie. To me, that's a cheat because nepotism and generational wealth building, because the majority of Black people, stop me when I go wrong, because I know you know the numbers, the majority of Black people, when the matriarch and or patriarch die in the family, start back at ground zero. We are dead last in insurance, whether it's whole or term, but we are number one in fish fries and GoFundMe in order to bury our people. We are starting from day one. Now, if you take away the Industrial Revolution and you take away slavery, the number one way the dominant society built wealth in this country was through insurance.
That's a fact.
And so we have to make sure that we're doing absolutely everything and treating every aspect of our business like what it is. It's a blood sport. Because if you are not on your P's and Q's, they will come take your stuff. You can't use the term business bully unless I let you. That's how that works. The same way you can't say what Michael Buffer says, which is, let's get ready to, don't you say it, because he will hit you with a $10,000 cease and desist.
Oh, wow.
We have to protect our intellectual property. But what do? We go and we put it on SoundCloud. We go and we upload it to YouTube. We put it absolutely everywhere, but behind a level of protection. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be out there, but be out there smart. I would not throw my keys to my 10-year-old daughter and say, drive daddy's truck down to the Wawa. The reason I'm not going to do that is because she's tiny and then I'm going to jail and my baby's probably going to die. So when it comes to business, we got to stop loving this Field of Dreams narrative we've been fed, because ain't none of us Kevin Costner. If you build it, you built it. They ain't coming. The way they come is by you being consistent. Where's your email list? What does your website look like? Is it mobilely optimized? Are you on the platforms you're comfortable with only, or are you on any platform where your key audience is. Is your ego the type that can't get past the fact that you're going to have to do some uncomfortable things? And if I'm a private person, you're not a Jackson, a Braxton, or a Bush. What do you need to be private for? Are you Johnny Depp or are you trying to make money? But you got no problem talking about your waist beads and your butters, and you can't understand why your waist beads and your butters and your herbal tea ain't selling. You keep talking about how you are the dopest airbrush t-shirt artist, but yet and still ain't nobody buying this. And you're talking about creating a clothing line and you have not built an audience? So am I bullying you, or am I pointing out the uncomfortable facts that everybody who so-called loves you is lulling you into sleep to believe? If that makes me the business bully, well, I'll take it. Because everybody else understands the importance of business. And all this, I ain't going to do business with my family. Tell that to the Waltons, tell that to the Kardashians, tell that to the Kennedys. Nah, we the only people. Let me tell you something. The day I put on a brass ring and the day they said, Mr. Anderson, it's a girl, was the day I stopped playing for my first name. When you wear a jersey, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey, the logo of the team is on the front and in some cases on the helmet. But what's on the back?
Last name.
You're playing for your last name. That is the business you're in. And if you ain't in that business, you're going to be very comfortable in the cubicle where you'll die in. I just left the Barber Star Conference, which is put on by Marcus Harvey, who's Nas's barber. And I told them very frankly, you can either develop systems or be another regular barber. And I said, to put that not so gently, you will develop systems, you will build subsequent supplementary products and services, or you will die with clippers in your hand. And I meant what I said, because you know what happens when you're a barber, for example? You start off fresh out of barber school, you just got your license, and you're in that front chair in the front of the shop, and you're just taking walk-ins because you haven't built no clientele yet. And after a while, you know how time goes. You have an 18-year-old, all of a sudden you got an adult calling you daddy. So you know how quickly time passes when you're not paying attention. So the young become the old, seat by seat by seat, till one day, old Barber Cam slunched over in his chair, dead with clippers in his hand. We got to stop planning for Saturday night and start planning for 5 generations. That's why I'm in this, because black people built this country. Black people created everything that is cool about this country. Our number one export is black excellence, which, by the way, doesn't make any sense because all excellence is black, and anything that isn't came from us or was deeply influenced by it.
Absolutely.
So why am I saying black excellence when we are the default for excellence? They just got us convinced through indoctrination and media manipulation that somehow we are less than and they are the standard bearers because they won. And when you win, you get to write the history. Which is why you don't know who Israel Thistle is, but you know who Paul Revere is. You familiar with Israel Thistle? He's the guy who really made the Midnight Ride, but he got lost to history because in those days, they did everything in poetry. Listen, my friends, and you shall hear of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, one if by land, two if by sea. See, that's poetic. That's Shakespearean. Come on, y'all, let's get this whistle. Let me tell you about, man, Israel Thistle. That don't sound sexy. But listen, my friends, and you shall hear of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. He rode 45 minutes. Thistle made that entire ride. We talk about how great Edison is, but Tesla has been reduced to a car brand. I'm just saying. So that's why we have to start gatekeeping. That's why we have to start doing real business, not business, not a side hustle. We got to put our all into it because you will put 40 hours a week for 40 years into a job that doesn't give a rat's ass about you just to retire for 40% of your income. But you won't sacrifice a year to set your family up for 5 generations. You don't want to talk to me.
Wow. So let's go to the point that you just made about let's do business. Let's not do business, but we got to do business.
Yes, sir.
Jay-Z said, "I'm not a businessman.
I'm a businessman." Yes.
You know. So that was really talking about becoming a business, branding, marketing.
Yes.
Black innovation. You talked about Tesla.
Certainly.
You mentioned something in the interview where you said that black people saved Chrysler.
Certainly.
Can you talk about how our consumerism has been used to help save companies like Chrysler, And I wanted to ask you, is it probably the same for Cadillac and the
Absolutely.
same for Mercedes-Benz as well?
Sure enough. Here's the thing, right? It's a double whammy. The first is they give us something that was created by us and they mass distribute it. The guy who created the Chrysler 300 was a black man, but Chrysler got the benefit from it. The guy who created the Super Soaker, Lonnie Williams.
Yes, Lonnie Williams. Yeah.
He just got his bag. And I was a goober when he created the Super Soaker. The Super Soaker 50 was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because I was lighting them kids up in my neighborhood.
Super Soaker was the greatest.
Bruh.
Was the greatest thing in the 90s. Like,
Bruh, oh my God.
If you didn't have a Super Soaker water gun,
you bugging.
you was bugging. Like you was trying.
You-
Somebody
why
had
why
one.
like in Harlem Nights when all them guys was trying to shoot up Eddie Murphy's character and Arsenio was like, pss, pss. That's what you look like with a water gun with a Super Soaker. I say all that to say they keep weaponizing innovation and then they will use their artists, their recording artists, their actors, their actresses, their movies, their magazines in order to tell you that this is the thing that you need to have. It's all our innovation, but we don't control that. We're phenomenal performers, but we're piss poor managers because we don't realize that if we had us, we wouldn't need them, but they convinced us that they're the only persons that can have distribution channels. So our innovation has been weaponized against us, and we have gone from being a producer class to being an overconsumption class. Our dollar only stays with us for 6 hours, but they keep coming into our community, all while the media is telling us there's no money in the hood. Then why in the world is there a Dunkin' Donuts, a McDonald's, a Burger King, all in our hood? Why is it that we have densely populated black neighborhoods that are food deserts, but we got all of this stuff up in there? They keep playing in our face and telling us, yeah, keep on creating, keep on doing this. And you will sit up here and you will bash Mona Scott Young. And don't get me wrong, I got smoke for her, but you don't know who Jim Ackerman is, but you do know who Harvey Levin is, and you do know who Andy Cohen is. And you keep signing up for these reality shows that make our women look like sluts and violent, gutter snipes. And you keep making our men look like some type of thug caricature that doesn't make any sense. And we keep thinking that because it's representation, it's cool. Well, I'm sorry. I don't care how much crap you put in a chocolate mousse dish and you put whipped cream and a cherry on it. I'm not eating that. The same way if I said, Brother King Cam, guess what? The Ku Klux Klan has changed and they just launched a line of chicken spots and they're called KKKFC. You want a two-piece?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because of their history.
But
Not trusting
they're
anything.
different now.
No,
but
their history.
but
They
they're-
have a resume.
No, Brother King Cam, you are wrong. They are different now.
There's no.
So tell
you
me
have
what's
to show me that you're different.
okay. So tell me the difference between that and then when Planned Parenthood, which was founded by Margaret Sanger, sends black women up to TV shows and radio shows like The Breakfast Club and say we're different now. We do all these other services. Well, I know drug dealers that made sure that little Billy had a scholarship, but they were still peddling poison.
Right.
And 30 million killed children in black communities where we don't have culturally competent healthcare is a problem. And that's why I wrote The Real Black Agenda. So yeah, it's our innovation being weaponized against us. And it's our apathy to realize that we have forgotten. Go watch Moana.
I love Moana.
Here's what I need you to understand. First of all, Ivan Van Sertima, they came before Columbus. And also Lee Rowan Bennett before the Mayflower. Moana says something. And in there she says, we were explorers. We've forgotten. And she's tearing down.
Yeah, right.
So that you can see what was really on the wall. All of those messages left by her ancestors. We have gotten so far away to who we were. We were innovators. It was Benjamin Banneker that set up DC. That's why DC has a huge obelisk in the middle of the daggone city. That's why the Capitol building has been there. How many times have they bombed or redestroyed or redistributed the White House for, I don't know, a ballroom? But that innovation is always there. Black women won the Revolutionary War because they understood the importance of cauterizing wounds and keeping wounds clean. That's how they beat the most sophisticated army in the world. We continue to innovate and they keep playing in our faces and we keep forgetting. We're like Michael McDonald on repeat. I keep forgetting we are black and we're dope. Wake the hell up and stop letting them use you for a bag and stop letting these people cross over that line and say, oh, let them rock. Let them do what they do. They're not hurting anybody, but how are they helping us when our communities are still in shambles and have been for the past 60 years? There used to be a time, one of my mentors, Dick Gregory, God rest his soul, he said,
Dick Gregory.
Boy, the day you start using this microphone for something other than rap and using your mouth for something other than stuffing it, you're going to be dangerous. Strike one. When are we going to start realizing that if you are making money off of us, even if you're one of us, and you're not giving back to us, it's up on you. We don't do that. We have rappers check in with the gangsters, but I don't see none of these gangsters making any of these businesses in their hoods that are feeding them chicken wings,
Right.
Chinese food. They're not checking them in. They're not running talking about, you know what? Fahima got an opportunity to go to dance school. You need to run her a scholarship because we done put millions in your family for 3 generations.
That's a fact.
So if you so gangster, go gangster them.
That's real talk.
That's all I'm saying. If you want them to check in, have everybody check in. But we don't do that. And we need to start holding everybody accountable. And that doesn't mean that we try to make them paupers, because they should be able to make a living. This ain't communism I'm talking about. It's community. The Jews do it. The Africans do it. The Asians do it. We need to get back to that. And when we do that, we'll start doing business over business and busyness.
No, that's facts. So the Real Black Agenda.
Yes, sir.
How can people get their hands on it?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's available everywhere. I would appreciate it if you go to therealblackagenda.com and get it. Because if you get it from therealblackagenda.com, I'm going to sign it. I'm going to send it to you. And I'm going to give you the audiobook for free. Because I want you to hear the stuff I said off script. And I want you to understand it. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me everything that's wrong in my book, other than the fact that I made it too simple. But you don't have an issue with a newspaper being written at a 5th grade level. Why am I going to talk above my people?
Right, exactly.
That's going to exacerbate the problem as opposed to ameliorate it. So there's your $5 words. Are you happy now?
There you go. So how can people follow you on social media? Stay tapped in to what Dave Anderson got going on.
Yes.
What's the next city you're going to be in? All of that.
All right. So I just got back from LA. I'm in Atlanta. You can tap in with me on all social media platforms at The Business Bully. And I'm trying to get in as many black bookstores as humanly possible so that we can have the conversation. We can talk about what we need to do. And I don't care if it's a church. I don't care if it's a prison. I don't care if it's a black bookstore. I want to be where people who want to read and find out what's next for our people are. And, you know, I'm so honored that you took the time to have me here. It means the world to me.
Bro, Dave, we got to do part 2. Like, it's some stuff I didn't even get to talk about. So we got to
I'm trying to keep it brief.
We got to do part 2. I got so many questions. I still got so many things I want to pick your brain about.
Yes,
we
sir.
got to do part 2, but it was an honor to have you here on Shifting the Culture, brother. And, man, we look forward to having you back. Family, make sure that you tune in. And that you, man, support this brother and all of the efforts that he's doing to support himself and support our people, man. It was an honor again, brother Dave.
Thank you, man.
And we look forward to having you back on Shifting the Culture.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.